It's time to focus on seniors with Helping Seniors TV. The television show designed to make you aware of senior issues and needs, as well as to acquaint you with the resources available to help you age in place and with dignity. Now, here's your host, Joe Steckler.
I'm Joe Steckler, and welcome to Helping Seniors, the television arm of Helping Seniors of Brevard County. Our show is designed to provide you with information on how to develop your own aging and care plans. Our topic today is Plight of the Hungry and the Homeless. And joining me is Rob Cramp with Housing for Homeless and John Farrell of Daily Bread. Welcome, Rob.
Thank you.
Welcome, John.
Thank you. Thank you
and
for
before
having us.
Thank you. I'm glad to have you both for here. But before I even ask him a single question, audience, I want everyone viewing this show to do your very best to tell others to watch. And the reason I'm asking you to do that is because we have a problem with the homeless and a problem with the people that are hungry. And until we start working together and unite as a community, we will not solve this problem. And by working together, there's absolutely no problem we cannot solve if we put our minds to it. And that's what is the spirit of the American people. We can do what we set our minds to do. And Rob and John, do you disagree with me?
Not at all.
Not at all.
Okay. I'd like to start with you, Rob. I have a couple of specific questions that I want to ask. And this has to do, I want you to describe for our audience what the mission of the Housing for Homeless is, the numbers you serve, and I got a couple. That's enough to burden you with. What is Housing for Homeless, and what are the kind of people you serve?
Our mission is pretty straightforward. It's to address the needs of the individuals and homeless individuals and families of Brevard County. That's it. Whatever they need, we address. Last year, we managed the needs of over 700 homeless clients. Over 300 of those were veterans. Not so many this year because we're hoping that we will have eliminated veteran homelessness by the end of this year in this county. So we're making great strides between us, John, myself, and the other agencies, to address that one. And then we're going on to eliminate chronic homelessness, which is people who've been out on the streets for a long time, by the end of 2017. Do
you work with, say, people on the Section 8 housing?
Yes, we do.
You work with them?
We work, I started an initiative with Brevard Housing Authority, and the results of those conversations was they now award 60 housing, Section 8 housing vouchers just for the chronic homeless over the next 12 months.
But as long as you've been involved with the homeless, do you believe that we're making some progress in reducing these unmet needs?
Absolutely, I think we are. We still have a fair way to go, but we are addressing the most immediate needs. Apart from one important area, and John probably can comment more than I can on this area, the need for emergency shelters. We are going backwards in that area. Salvation Army in Titusville closed down their shelter earlier this year, and so we're losing shelters rather than gaining them.
We're losing shelters.
Yeah, absolutely. And John John deals with the people at the first level when they first approach them, and that emergency housing is something that we really need to develop.
Well, let's just talk about Daily Bread. What is Daily Bread? What is your mission, and how do you interact with the homeless?
Daily Bread is a social services organization, and we have 4 different entities that make up Daily Bread. The first is a soup kitchen. We feed people every day of the year, so we're open 365. In fact, we've only been closed 4 days since 1987.
You're open Saturdays and Sundays too?
And holidays and holy days and the whole days, yes.
Okay.
All of them, every day. So that's our soup kitchen. We also have a service and outreach center that provides services to help people get out of poverty, because we deal with both homeless and non-homeless. And a lot of those services have to do with jobs, housing, and a lot of other things. It's too long a list to bore you with, actually. We also have a food bank. It started out as a warehouse for Daily Bread, but we started collecting foods to the degree that's way beyond our needs. Last year, for example, we brought in 1,250,000 pounds of food. We only used 20% of that in our kitchen. The other 80% we provide to 20 different partner agencies who hand it out in bags to needy families. Many of the church pantries, like Holy Name and many of the others in our area, are recipients of that food. And then last but not least, we have a little thrift shop that helps pay our bills. So when we're looking at the 4 agencies, they all work together for the same goal, and that's to help our clients. Our clients, every year we do a census, and I'm going to say this in a couple of different ways. Last year, which our census ended in June, mid-June of 2014, 69% of all the people that came to Daily Bread were homeless. This year it's 54%. That number has gone down.
How do you know that?
By the census we take. We interview every person that comes on our campus during a 10-week period of time, and they answer questions, and we compare those to the year before.
Okay.
Last year, 22% worked. This year, 36% are working. So the major initiatives we put in place 2 years ago for employment and housing are working. Is it all because of us? No, but a good chunk of it is. How do we do it? We also partner with lots of agencies. In our part of the world, the south part of the county, we're partnering with 2 other agencies, and each one of us takes a different group of homeless people to help back into housing. In the middle, if I had a client that was in the central part of the county, I'd call people like Rob Cramp or other agencies based on the needs of the people I was dealing with and ask them to partner with me and take that person on to help them get out of homelessness. And invariably, we work very well together.
Well, let's talk about it. Let me interrupt you a second.
Go ahead.
You're causing me to think that we've got different levels or different groups or different types of homeless.
We do.
How much you talking about that just for a second?
It generally comes into 2 categories. There is the homeless, and then you have who are people who are, they live paycheck to paycheck, and then they lose their job. They can't pay the rent, they're homeless. Not a serious situation, but they may need a bridging of anything from a few months to maybe a year until they get another job, and they may not even need housing, they may just need money to help them and avoid homelessness. Then you have people who are couch surfing, the mother-in-law's had enough of them and wants to throw them out. So we have that. We then have the most extreme though, which is chronic homelessness. Chronic homelessness is defined as people who have a disability of some sort, and they've either been homeless for at least a year or 4 times in the last 3 years. They've kind of been in and out of housing. Those are called chronic homeless. We are, at this point, really focusing on those as a matter of priority.
If I may, in the South, we're dealing with it a little bit different, but very close. We recognize 3 groups rather than 2 for this reason. We see the chronic, as Rob so much described, as being people that are homeless at least for a year and have a disability, and more likely have been homeless for more than that. We see another group, however, that are the emergency homeless. In other words, they're people that the sheriff locked the door on them today. They come to us and say, we don't have a place to sleep tonight. What are we going to do?
What do you do?
Well, I'll get to that in a minute. But also part of that same group are people you can turn around quickly. Maybe they just were evicted today and they just need help getting into something new. So that's one group. And then the chronic, the second. And then there's an interim group, are people that can't afford housing or need a lot of financial help or other supportive services to get into housing and then maintain it. So they need aftercare. It could be case management to make sure they keep that job or help them with a budget or other things dealing with life's problems that are the reason they got into homelessness in the first place. So we look at it a little differently, but only because we're dividing the pie into 3 places. There are 3 agencies that have banded together for each of those 3 areas. Daily Bread does all the intake, or the majority of the intake for the whole group in the southern part of the county. But they also do some on their own, and we share with each other the information from an interview and sitting down with people, and the approach, the plan. Where do we go from here, and how do we help them out of homelessness? So if it's someone chronic, I would do the interview, send all the information to Gap Ministry, which is affiliated with Peace Lutheran Church, and they would then take the client from there, review all our notes, and they're a step ahead because they've got the information they need to go forward.
So we got a system in place.
It's a system, unfortunately, it's not countywide, and each section deals with it a little differently. We deal with it differently in the south than Rob might do in the central part of the county, and probably the northern part of the county has a little different. We're working with geography here for many reasons. There are about 1,850 children in the school system that are homeless. They're with a homeless family, okay? Wow. And each one of those has a parent, of course, but because they're in that school, there's a tendency not to want to move from wherever you are in order to find housing. So you wouldn't necessarily take someone whose child went to Endeavor Elementary and offer them some housing assistance in Palm Bay. It doesn't make sense. So you have to consider all that stuff. And that's one of the reasons we've set it up the way we have.
But it sounds at times like there's more take than there is give.
In what sense?
That the people that need the help might expect you all to bend more than they're willing to bend to make a situation work.
But we don't do that. We don't bend that way. And I can only speak for myself at this point.
I'm not making
a let's take a quick scenario. A man and a woman and their child come in, and they're staying at a motel. And they come in with the idea of staying in that motel. They're looking for money to stay there. We say, no, we don't believe in motels. But what we will help you to do, assuming you make a living, you can support a place to live. You can obviously now if you're in a motel. So what we'd rather see you do with those dollars is put them into an apartment that's more permanent in nature, number one, and a lot less expensive. For example, a motel could cost $55 a night, the cheapest one I know of. $55 a night. That's $1,650 a month. You can get into an apartment for $700 or $600, a 2-bedroom, and that's a lot less expensive, and it helps the financial situation for the family. So why would you encourage them to stay in the motel? That's part of what we do as case management.
Do you all work together to make these things?
Absolutely.
In some cases, we do.
Well, let me ask you a question. Let's say that you get a family that comes to you and they're kicked out, and they have absolutely nothing. You got a thrift shop. Would you or could you send those people to Daily Bread to sort of get equipped to go into, or could you help them get into an apartment?
Well, it starts before then. John talked about what they do in the South. The long-term goal for the county is to bring all the agencies together and have what we call now, and we're trying to run this across the county, is what we call coordinated assessment. So a family can come into any agency in the county and get the same response. And their information will be taken down, whatever they need, and will be included in that assessment. And that is then sent to a central clearinghouse, if you like, coordinated assessment, where we look at a group of people, look at what that family needs. And it may be funding, it could be case management, as John says, and about half the time it's housing. Not all the time, half the time it's housing. But then those are all brought together. And then we respond back to the family and say, here's what we can provide in the way of funding. Here's, if it's a thrift shop, here's where we can send you for a thrift shop. Here's what we need in the way of housing. So it's like one-stop shopping for the homeless, really. They only have to make one point of contact.
What you two are saying is we have a semblance of that is sort of trying to mesh together.
Right. But as John said, it's we have a difficult county to manage. You've got 4 cities that all somewhat tend to do their own thing. And so we're in the moment engaged in a dialogue where we're trying to get Melbourne to do the same as Cocoa, to do the same as Tyne.
What you're saying is we need to do more about working together.
Absolutely.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. In fact, the topic, I am the facilitator for the Providers Committee within the Brevard Homeless Coalition. And our topic for next month, January 7th, if you'd like to join us, is all about collaboration with each other, because that's got to be the first step in solving a problem together. If we can't work together, it's not going to happen.
And we're going to also have in the spring a countywide, what we call a summit meeting. And we're going to bring in the heads of the cities. We're going to bring in the heads of the police force. We're going to bring heads of the major hospitals, and all come together into one summit and put together a countywide plan about how we move forward.
Okay, now look, I've got a weekly radio show.
Yep.
We've got this television show.
Yep.
We've got access to Hometown News, Spotlight, Senior Scene, Aldea, and Every News Today. The Spanish community, the Black community, all communities. all you got to do, you both know my phone number. You called me before on things. There's no reason that we can't do a better job of coordinating some of these things. And the reason I say it is because there's one group I don't think either one of you have talked about, and that's this group. And the reason I have is because it's really hitting home. I think you mentioned it, but I may have missed it. How about the ones that are in their 50s and 60s that don't qualify for Social Security, that have no semblance or way to get money, they lose their job, and they've done something stupid that prevents them from getting a job. And we have people like that call our information specialist, and she called me the other day with a situation like this. She said the man couldn't stop crying. She said, would you call him? I did. I made him a promise. I couldn't keep that promise on Sunday. It wasn't until Monday that I could finally get to the person. A man sent me his resume. I looked at his resume. There are companies in this community that could hire this man if they would. He's 58 years old. He's going to lose his home. He's going to lose everything. And once he loses it, it's going to put somebody else as a burden on you two, right, on your communities. It tore my gut apart, but I got the head of a major agency in the county that said, I will do everything within my power to help him, Joe. And when I called that man back, he couldn't. The emotion that came from him, simply from the fact that somebody listened to his problem. And I sense that's what both of you do, is that you are listening to the problems of the homeless, you're listening to the problems of the hungry people, and we're trying to resolve the problem. And that's the piece of pie that I don't think that many of the nonprofits recognize.
Let me, if I may.
Good.
With your...
Go ahead.
That's that part of that third group that I was talking about. These are folks that don't have the wherewithal to do everything and maintain a place on their own without some kind of supports that could be financial or otherwise. In his case, his support needs a job. He needs a job. Okay. Have him come and see us. Okay?
I forgot about you. I'll remember.
Well, yeah, but that's that third group I'm talking about. Yep. And the agency in the southern part of the county that deals with that specific group of people is the South Brevard Sharing Center. So I may do the intake, listening to what you tell me about him and what he and his wife sit down and share with me what their story is. And then I will shoot it on to the Sharing Center. And while he's with me, I'll make an appointment for him to see an intake person there so that he's not passed off into some blue moon somewhere.
But see, that's the...
But let me just finish. What then will happen is he will get to the Sharing Center and they will do what is an assessment tool using SPDAT to decide what category of help he needs, and then how he needs it. If it looks like he simply needs help finding a job because he's 58 years old and needs help with resume building, contacts, recommendations, and all that stuff, we can help him get that. If he's got something else in his background that inhibits someone from hiring him, we can address that as well. Because there are things we can do to help with that, okay? But without sitting down with the individual and knowing all of his specifics, we don't put a plan together with him. And I say with him because it becomes his plan.
Yep.
Okay?
But see, that's the problem, John, Rob. The people that are watching these television shows don't know what you two are talking about. Well, that's our problem.
I understand. But again, there is no one way that you could sit down, I don't know how many hours you do shows, in all the shows you do for a month and cover everything we possibly do. Okay? So, getting back to the idea, we look at people and try to get an idea of where to start with them. Okay? In the South, we do it 1 of 3 areas. We do common intake for each other, but we focus in one specific area by agency. At Daily Bread, for example, we might have even helped there because we have a specialist that helps with employment. Her name is Mary Jane Wysocki. I think you know her.
I know her.
She used to be head of Goodwill in this area, and she's done a great job in putting together a reemployment group for us. So we have some assets that we can put to good use there. The other day I had a man come in, and this was a second visit. The first visit we did an interview. We determined we were going to help him. He and his wife together made enough money where they could get into housing and maintain it. They just needed the money to get into it. So after the interview, we found a source of the monies to provide him a loan, not a gift, but a loan, because he can repay that loan. He has the ability to do so with the income he makes, and get him into housing. So he comes in to get the check, and he tells me he's lost his job. I picked up the phone, called a friend of mine that's in the same business that he was in, and said, in fact, you know who I'm talking about, so I'm going to avoid the name. So-and-so is here. He's a such and such technician. I know you're in that business. Would you be interested in interviewing him? He had an interview that day, that afternoon. Now, that's only because of what happened that day, and it was happenstance, or maybe God, that helped us give him that knowledge. But I assure you, across the top of the board, we can help people that come to us. No matter
But if people don't know about the resources, and if people won't make that phone
But
call,
they should be able to call 211 Brevard.
There are other resources. When obviously we're helping first and foremost people who are homeless. So if somebody comes to us and they've just lost their job and they're not homeless, we may have to refer them. But when people come into our program because they're homeless, we find them housing. Next day, job one is, do you have a job? And if not, we're going to help you find a job. And what we work very closely with Career Source Brevard, they are the professionals. We have dedicated coordinators in our Titusville office, in Rockledge, and down in the south who work specifically with us to not only just find them a job, but to help them with interview training, look at their resume. That kind of person is perfect for Career Source Brevard. And 85%, people talk about, are you giving away things? Is this an entitlement, this housing? 85% of our transitional clients have jobs, 85%, because we work with them with Career Source Brevard to find them, because that's the most important thing.
But what you're saying is, you can provide help to people that want to accept the help. That one of the biggest problems, I think, that the community at large thinks when we talk about housing or homeless people or people that go to Daily Bread, is that they get a mindset that the people don't want to accept help. What I'm hearing is that's not true.
Well,
No, it is to a degree.
It's just to a degree. Up to now, we have not dealt primarily with chronic homeless because quite frankly, we haven't been able to have the coordinated services necessary to support them. So we've done, and I said that with the other regular type of homeless people, and we make very sure that they get the services they need, but on our way to self-sufficiency. Our transitional housing program is 2 years. We get funded for 2 years. After that, people have to leave our program and stand on their own 2 feet. So our whole dialogue is about how do you get back on your feet. As we now come to address chronic homelessness, these are people who may have been out in the bush, Joe, for years. You just can't turn around and say, now you've got to go and get yourself a job. The first thing to do is get them into a house, get them settled in, then you start talking about a job. So it's a slightly different approach depending on how much their need is. And as John says, every family is different.
Okay.
I want to touch on one quickie because
You got a minute and a half, and you got a minute and a half.
Okay.
Okay.
I had an 87-year-old woman come in the door and say, John, I need help. I can't get housing anywhere. So I looked into why, and I found out that no matter where she went, she was only there several months, and then she was asked to leave, 87 years old. And what I found out with this woman was she had a problem with her faculties. That's the best way to say it. She would hear things in the middle of the night and start knocking on people's doors, or that kind of thing. Or she would tell people, so-and-so is coming into my house and stealing from me. She had a problem with paranoia to a very minor degree. Long story short, she'd even been made by her family to get her Baker acted, and that failed because she had enough smarts. Okay, so what do you do with someone like this?
Yeah.
The first thing I did was I called Circles of Care, and I called and said, I would like to see if you could evaluate this woman and tell us what's going on and maybe make some suggestions on where we might go from here. So she did. And the doctor sat down and she asked that I be there too, which it all worked out. And he said, I'm going to give her a mild sedative so she sleeps through the night. And if that happens, she won't be able to get up and knock on doors at 2 o'clock in the morning.
That's true.
But she refuses to take the medication. Okay?
Right.
So she is electively homeless. by default. Nothing I can do. There's another woman about the same age, 83, 84, who has 2 dogs, won't give the dogs up, and they're large. No landlord's going to let her into their apartment with a dog. So she still, to this day, I believe, is roaming the beach.
I think I know that one.
I think you do.
I do know that one.
I'm pretty sure you do. So there are cases that no matter what you do, we can't do it for them. Would you agree?
Yeah, I think so. But I think
Rob, your turn.
I think we are.
That was a segue.
We can do a better job in that. Not Daily Bread do a great job. Is that one of the areas that we still have work to do is how we bring the health service community into it. Wusthof, Homes, the Health Alliance. We don't have the kind of close partnership that we should have in that area. So to John's point, when somebody refuses to take the meds, we often don't have professionals who will sit down with that person and convince them to take the meds. We need a more closer dialogue. And I'm currently working with all 3 of those to develop so that when we get homeless people into a property, they can immediately be exposed not just to a case manager, but to all the services that this county offers, like Homes, like Wusthof, like the Health Alliance, like Circles of Care for psychiatric counselling. We have to be able to provide those the moment they get into this property.
But we're almost out of time, but we are very limited in facilities like Circles of Care, and I think only there, and they have a lockdown ward unit at Wusthof. That's the only 2 places in the county that I'm aware of.
But unless we tell them, Joe, about what we need, they're not going to expand. They'll expand to meet needs. So we have to do a better job of going to them and saying, this is what we need. This is what John needs. This is what I need.
That's why we'll do some more of these TV shows, and I'll get you on the radio show, because once we got it on tape, we can play it anywhere. I'm Joe Steckler. Thank you for joining our program today. I'd like to remind you that our senior information line is available to you at 321-473-7770. There you can get help and direction that could be helpful for your specific situation or circumstances. The work of helping seniors is very important, but we can't do it alone. That is why our sponsors here in Brevard County are so important. I'd like to thank our many area sponsors, businesses and medical providers who support the mission of helping seniors that help us carry the cost of our media efforts. If you'd like to join us either as a business partner or simply donate as an individual, we would welcome your call at 321-473-7770. You are always welcome to visit our website at www.helpingseniorsofbrevard.org. Thanks so much for your help. It does make a difference.